right, looks like quite a few more people have shown up, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you to everyone for showing up today. This is going to be a product webinar where we will do a walkthrough of the Kobiton platform and then talk a bit about the future of testing and how we're playing a role in that shifting landscape. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Clay.
Hey everyone, so thank you for joining today. So as Drew mentioned, my name is Clay Montgomery. I'm one of the account executives here at Kobiton. Also with us we have Frank Moyer, who is our CTO. So the whole goal of today's Deminar, and I'll give you guys a little bit of an overview, is to really go over what Kobiton is. So some of you guys may already be familiar with Kobiton, some of you may not be. So I want to give a little bit of background on Kobiton, go over the platform as a whole. So what I'm going to really focus on today is a lot of what Kobiton is today. So the need in the market that we feel today, what we have today, give a high-level overview of that product, and then Frank is really going to go over the future state. So the title of the webinar, The Future of Testing, we are really going to highlight what we're doing now to help our customers and the things we fit in the market, but then also Frank's going to touch on where we are going as a company for the rest of this quarter and for 2019. So I'm not going to show you guys a ton of slides, but we are going to go over just a couple right now because I want to give you a little bit of background on Kobiton. So as I mentioned, some of you guys may be familiar with it, some of you may not be, but we actually, for not being an extremely old company, we actually have a really strong testing background. We come from a company called KMS Technology, and part of their organization is to have an incubator to start up other companies where they feel there was a need in the market, and they felt there was a need in the testing market, in the mobile testing market specifically. So as I mentioned, not an extremely old company, but right now we have about 30,000 users at any given time, and we're averaging about 2 million test minutes per year as well. We already have some customers we work with that are pretty notable in the Wolters Kluwer, the Under Armours, and the Office Depots of the world. And then when it comes to integrations with different automation testing frameworks, we have quite a few of those, sort of the big players in the markets, the Jenkins and the Jiras and TestFlight and some of those. And I'll go over it a little bit more later, but also the way that Kobiton is architected, we can easily integrate with whatever environment that you are using. All right, this gives you a little bit of a high level on what Kobiton is today and then what we are moving towards. So one of the real keys of Kobiton is we focus purely on mobile and we focus purely on real device testing. The folks out in the market are using real devices, so that is really what you should be testing on as well. And we've had quite a few of our customers who've moved over from using things like simulators and emulators, moved to Kobiton real device testing, and they were able to find a lot more bugs that they were not finding previously. This little center part today, the device lab management, this is what Kobiton is today. So today, Kobiton provides a platform for you to test on real devices, either through manual testing or automated testing. We can do that from a variety of deployments, whether it's utilizing our devices, utilizing your own devices, but the device lab management tool that we have is the hub of this. What we are moving to in the future, and what Frank will speak a lot about in the second half of this webinar, is the augmented mobile testing. So the way mobile testing is done today, he will touch on, and the way Kobiton is hoping to change the way mobile testing is being done by using both technology, but also using users and testers as well. We think that's a very important piece. So as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, when it comes to Kobiton, there are really a few different deployment methods, and I'm going to touch on those today during the product demonstration. So we have a public cloud devices that are shared devices amongst all of our customers that come in and utilize the Kobiton product. We also have the ability to host devices for you privately. So we have the ability to purchase and host devices for you that will be private only to your organization. And a big difference there is those devices also have unlimited minutes. And then we also have the ability for you to connect your own devices. So a lot of our customers have already made an investment in mobile devices. They have them laying around one office or multiple offices. This is a way for you to then connect those devices and increase the ROI on those devices. And with Kobiton, you can do one of these deployment models, all three, any of the two of the three. So we have also a hybrid model, and that is what the vast majority of our enterprise customers use. and everything is accessible in a single browser window, so a single central location. You can not only see your automation scripts and your manual devices for testing, you also see all your different reports and session details and org management. All of that is controlled in a single browser window. All right, so let me go ahead and hop into the actual product demo. And what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to give you guys a high level of Kobiton. I'm not going to go into extreme detail, but I do want to give you a little bit of a flavor of what the platform can do. I'll show how it runs on an manual test and also an automated test. And then if you have any questions, we're happy to address them later if there's any details that I didn't necessarily dive into. So one thing about Kobiton as well is we try to keep things very simple and very clean. So when you first come into Kobiton, you sign up for a trial, you have a subscription, whatever it may be, you are immediately brought into the devices page. So the devices page has really broken down into 3 sections. So I have favorite devices up here at the top, which is just any device. I put a star beside, nothing too crazy here. Down below that, these are our private devices. So as you see here, these are, say, Acme Inc. devices because I'm part of this Acme Inc. org. If you had your own organization, you created an org in here and you either connected your own devices or we hosted private devices for you, they would all show up in this section and only be accessible to your employees. And then down below that is our Kobiton cloud devices. These are our publicly shared devices. Do keep in mind that every one of these rectangles is a real physical device. You know, I touched on that a little bit earlier, that we use all real devices. So if you see 2 devices that look exactly the same, like these 2 A7s, we actually have 2 A7s that are very similar, that are both connected. One thing of this cloud that we try to really keep conscious of is we are not trying to necessarily mirror what the market is today. We are trying to cover the entire market or a substantial amount of it. So you'll see here that we'll have older devices on older versions of Android. You know, from the Galaxy side, we have lower end devices like A3s and A7s up through the Cs, various J devices. And then we have anything from Note 3s up to the new Note 9s, and then kind of so on and so on. Go down through all the different Galaxy devices, and then you start to get into tablets as well. So Galaxy tabs, iPads, iPhones. You will see here as well that when it comes to the iOS market too, we try to have a wider variety of the market. So we have old phones and new phones, and we also have older OSs and newer OSs. So I have an iPhone 6 up here on 9.3.5, and then I also have an iPhone 6 on 12.1.4 and one on 10. So we try to keep a wide variety in here because the vast majority of our enterprise customers, as I mentioned earlier, they utilize a hybrid type model where they will have a subset of devices up here that they'll do a lot of their regression testing or automation testing or things of that nature on. And then often they will utilize the Kobiton cloud devices for support issues, bug replication, you know, whatever it may be. That's when they'll use this larger cloud and variety of devices. And I'll go into here and then do a manual test momentarily and show you guys how this works, but I want to give a real high level of the platform before that. So over here on the left side under devices is sessions. And under this sessions tab, this is essentially where all of your test records are going to live. So every time I perform a test on Kobiton, whether it's through automation, whether it's through manual testing, I'm going to have a record that has things like screenshots and videos and device logs and things of that nature. All of that resides here. And then down below sessions is our apps repository. So you can utilize applications from an app URL. You can also grab apps from your desktop as well. But we also have an app repository in which you can install your applications here and then quickly grab them. So I have a bunch of random apps here, but you would only be able to see your applications and no one else would be able to see your applications. From here as well, we also have an open API that can allow you to automatically push different builds of your app directly to this app repository. So once it reaches a certain milestone in the build process, you can push that app to here, and then your QA folks can automatically access that. And then if you have multiple apps, you can even thread them together. So like the Best Buy app here, I have 2 different versions. So you see I have 11.7 and 10.3, and you could add various numbers of apps here to streamline that process with your teams. And then I won't touch on most of these things up here at the top, but we do have the ability for you to download the desktop app, which will allow you to connect your own devices. We have free 24/5 support. We have some different user guides and frequently asked questions. For automation testing, this is where our open REST API will live. And then down here, we have some other things like profile, change your password, whatever it may be, subscription, see what you have, see what you've purchased, see how many minutes you have left, things of that nature. And then under settings, there can be quite a few things that you can do, like set up your own organization, invite different users to your Kobiton org, customize the cleanup policy for your private or local devices. There's quite a few things that you can do, but for sake of time, I'm going to skip some of that stuff. If you have any questions about that, please just let me know. So what I want to do now is I want to show you guys a little bit about how this works. So you'll notice that if I hover over any of these devices, you really have three options. So over on the left side is launch device. Launch device will essentially start a manual test session. So the device is going to pop up. I'm going to be able to click. I'm going to be able to click. I'm going to be able to drag. I'm going to be able to search. I'm going to be able to test native apps, whatever it may be. So I can do all of that from launching the device. Over from launch is viewing details. So here you get a little bit more detail on the device. So you can see it's a Pixel 2. That's on Android 8.1. Here's the UDID of the device, which again proves that this is an actual real device. And you get things like screen resolution as well. And if I want to launch that device, I can actually launch it from here as well. And then over from that is our automation settings. I'm going to touch on this in just a little bit, but here is where you would basically get your desired capabilities for your Appium or Selenium-based scripts. So for now, let me go ahead and jump into one of these private devices we have, and I'll just go ahead and use the 1+5 and do a quick manual test and show you how this works. So I click on that launch button, and now there is typically takes about 10 seconds or so. There's not a whole lot of time that it takes, but the device does go through sort of a setup process, and then the device pops up. And once the device pops up, you have full control over that device at that point. So, if I want to click and swipe up on the device clicks and swipes up. If I click on Chrome, Chrome pops open. If I want to do a search, for our parent company, I can then search in Google and so on and so on. So, one of the things at Kobiton that we very much pride ourselves in is performance. So when I click and drag, we want this to click and drag. If I click on the KMS homepage, we want the homepage to open up. One of the big issues that we heard with other mobile testing platforms before Kobiton existed was there was a lot of latency. It wasn't a realistic approach and it wasn't a realistic feel of the device. So therefore people were purchasing these and they were not actually utilizing them. So it was really a waste of money. So one of the big things that we always focus on with every release is trying to get the performance even better. We want it to be as much like a real device in hand as possible. But in saying that, it is not a real device in hand, so there is some limitations from the actual screen here, and that is why we built some shortcuts over here to the right. So the top shortcut is just to take a screenshot. So if I click on this, it'll automatically take a screenshot of this screen. But do keep in mind, every time I perform an action on Kobiton like that swipe, that automatically took a screenshot, and there's also being a full video that's taken right now as well, and I'll show you that after this is over. But if you do want to take a screenshot, you can take it. Below that is touch functionality. Touch allows me to do what I have been doing. Below that is pinch to zoom. So this allows me to zoom in and zoom out. I guess our website's not zoomable, which makes this demo not quite as good. If I go back to like the Google page, you'll see that it'll zoom in, it'll zoom out just as you would expect by using your fingers on a screen. Down below that is rotate the screen. So you can click here and it'll actually rotate the device into landscape mode. And then from landscape mode, it'll act just as you would expect. And if it pushes anything over, you can pull it over and so on and so on. And then if I click it, it'll rotate it back as well. Down below that are a couple other functions that some of our customers find extremely useful. So here you can actually set the device location. So I can spoof the GPS of the device. If you have a native application that is using the device GPS, you can make sure that is working properly. You can also change the device time zone. This can be used for various different reasons like setting up alerts or things of that nature and making sure certain notifications are being pushed through properly. And then down below that, you have a lot of the native functionality of the device. So power up, power down, recent apps, home button, back button, and so on and so on. And then over here under sessions, you have quite a few details you can add. So I can say this is the product demo on 4/23. If I wanted to add a description, I can add a description as well. Under this apps repository, here are those applications that we were looking at earlier. So if I wanted to install any of these applications, I can click and install the applications. The applications will begin to install just as they would if I was installing from the App Store or the Play Store. And then over from that are the live device logs as well. I actually have live logs turned off for me right now because we are going through an actual release of a product, so I was just testing it out for myself, but you will be able to see the logs afterwards. I'll show those to you. But this is basically, and then just like in a native app, it works the same as it would with the web search that I was doing earlier. So I'll be able to come in here, sign up for an account, and do testing as you would expect. And then I'm not going to touch on too much more, but when I do exit this device, I then can come over here to this sessions tab that I showed you guys earlier. And under the sessions tab, you'll see that the product demo that I just completed is sitting here on top. If I come in here, you can see who performed the test, how long it took, when they performed it, were they testing a native app or web, and if a native app, what version of the app. You have all the information on the device all the way down to the UDID if you need to replicate the bug that they were having. Under actions performed, you have all those screenshots. So as I mentioned, here is where I took the physical screenshot under the take screenshot action, but every time I was clicking and dragging and swiping, it was also taking screenshots. There will also be full video. So really the longer the test, the longer the video takes to upload. So this is a 3 or 4 minute long test. It's going to take, a minute or so to upload, but I'll be able to show it to you momentarily. And then even though I didn't have those live logs earlier because I had mine turned off, you do have your device logs here as well. And one sort of neat feature about Kobiton that a lot of our customers really like is the fact that each one of these test sessions has a unique ID. So if you are part of my organization, I can simply just send you over this ID as well. So I can download the device logs, I can download these screenshots, but if I'm on my QA team and I'm trying to share this over with one of my developers, I can also simply just share over this session link. I can drop into a Jira ticket, whatever it may be, and say, hey, we have a UI issue. Look at screenshot number 12. They can also see it in the video, and then they also have the logs, which helps them fix their bugs a lot faster. And then the last thing I want to show you guys, and it's going to sort of parlay into what Frank was doing as well, is the automation side of things. So as I mentioned earlier, under automation settings here, these are simply just Appium desired capabilities. So Frank is going to talk a lot more about what we are doing sort of future state for Kobiton. But what Kobiton is today, as long as you have an Appium or Selenium-based script, you can run those scripts on Kobiton devices now. All you have to modify is the fact that instead of pointing it towards a local device or instead of pointing it towards another server or service, you would point it towards the Kobiton server. It would look for your username. It would look for your API key to validate that you have access to that particular device. And then the rest of that is just simple desired capabilities. We support various different languages as Java, but we support C# or Ruby or Python. If you click on one of these, it'll actually change the format of this. And then you can go down and also change as well. This is a web test, but if I want to run it on a native or hybrid app, I can do that here. Or if I want to run it in landscape mode, I can change that. So there's various things you can do. So for what Kobiton is today, we've been very successful in the market, as you guys have seen. We have a lot of different customers that utilize Kobiton for the device management and the device access platform that it is now. And we feel that it renders a lot of value to our customers. All of our customers have come back and they're repeat customers of Kobiton and continue to see value in the platform. But at the same time, especially when it comes to this automation side of the business, we were always sort of under the notion of we want to be in the device management business. We don't really want to be in the scripting side of the business. But as we work closely with our customers, as we started to really hear their pains, there is a lot of pain in the mobile automation landscape. So we are now looking to get closer to that, and we've worked closely with a lot of our customers to achieve that. And Frank's going to talk a little bit more about how that landscape is shifting with the adoption of mobile just globally and the challenges that we see in the market and how we're looking to alleviate a lot of those challenges as well. So I'm going to pass this over to Frank. Again, if you guys have any questions about current state of product, please drop the questions in. Drew will be able to see them. Drew will pass them over to us at the end of this, and we'll go from there. But appreciate everyone's time, and I'll send this over to Frank and go through a couple of things that he wants to go through, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you very much, Clay. I was trying to decide between presenting on the Galaxy Fold for the next 20 minutes or the future of mobile testing, and I think I'm going to focus on the future of mobile testing. The first thing I wanted to share was some statistics that we capture about the trends in testing automation, and this is looking at users on LinkedIn, people on LinkedIn who have cited these skills, whether it's XUI test, Espresso, Appium, all on the mobile side, or Selenium on the web side. And we looked at these statistics in September of 2018 and compared them to how they are now to see the trends that are happening right now in mobile testing and web testing. And as you can see, there is still a dramatic growth in mobile testing, but the number of testers on web is still 90% or 88% of overall automation testing. So there's a lot of room to make up, but Appium, and we'll talk more about Appium, is the largest market share percentage growth over the past 6 months. We will continue to monitor this and report in future webinars on these trends, so you can see how the market's changing. Now, what influences the use and adoption of Appium? We talked to hundreds of users and prospects and the community about Appium and what some of the issues are and where they see the advantages over using Espresso or XUI test. The key thing that was the biggest issue was speed. Appium tends to be about 8 times slower than Espresso and 4 times slower than XUI test. If you look at your nightly processing of tests, and you've got 8 hours of testing that you're trying to squeeze into a 4-hour window, this becomes a big factor. We've had some customers that have they run their tests 24 hours a day. They run around the clock using 50 plus devices from Kobiton. The second issue is the delays in operating systems. Between when a new version of iOS was released and when Appium officially supports it, that can be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. During that time within Kobiton, you can still manually test your application through our interface. And once Appium comes out and supports the latest iOS version, you can run it through automation on Kobiton. And probably the greatest frustration of Appium testers is the ability to easily find elements. And this is the main reason this is a problem, and this is different between mobile and browser testing, is that the device manufacturers render the XML different across other manufacturers. So what renders the XML in one way on a Samsung S7 versus a Google Pixel 3 will be could be very different. And that makes finding the elements hard, and also requires extensive knowledge on scripting in Appium to know, to put that conditional logic in there to say, if it's a Google Pixel 3, here's how you find the element. And there are other ways to do it, but this is the most common used is through XPath selectors, and it is a huge frustration in the industry right now. And we'll talk more about how we're partnering with the Appium community to make that better. On the benefit side, you can use multiple languages. It doesn't have to be in the language of choice for XUI test in Espresso. It also supports both Android and iOS, so you only have to write your scripts once and use them across different both Android and iOS. And another advantage is it supports native web and hybrid. So as you know, more of the market is, or mobile market is increasingly going towards progressive web applications, which Kobiton supports. You know, you can test your application, progressive web app, as well as a native app, all through Appium and Kobiton. So this tees up where we're heading from a product perspective. Our goal is to make automation easier for the tester, and we are using a variety of, over the next 6 months, a variety of statistical techniques and machine learning techniques to make working with Appium more pleasant. Our goals are to allow the manual tester to execute a manual test on one device and replay those same steps across any other device. That is in the industry referred to as record and playback, but it sometimes has a bad connotation, especially in mobile, where a lot of the applications, the products that have done record and playback on mobile, it fails because of the different XPath selectors. And I'll talk a little bit about how we do that and how we're unique. The second goal is being able to export that Appium script to that script just to a pure Appium script, so you can actually kick that off from Appium. You know, we are going to use our machine learning capabilities to figure out the best selectors and back propagate those selectors into the scripts. So there are device specific conditional logic is all exported as part of the Kobiton exported Appium script. There is, in addition to the pure record and playback, the assertion part, which is looking at verifications across the user interface, functional performance and system, will be done out of the box. So when you execute a test, we will look at the screens themselves and identify, allow the user to specify thresholds for comparison and identify anything that exceeds those thresholds. Our other goal is to allow, when, you know, one of the big challenges with record and playback is, yeah, you got to re-record it every release. Well, we are building self-healing capabilities into our upgrade process so that when a new application release comes out, you can make the changes in one place and have that ripple through all of your automation scripts, making that upgrade of a new application a painless process, or less painful at least. And then you know, support, if you have Appium and you're not using our record and playback, you can still support the verification process that was explained earlier in goal 3. So just to summarize, you know, our goal here is to allow testers to be more supported. So tests should work for the testers versus testers spending a lot of time working to make tests work. I'm going to go through next just a quick video clip of what we're building to give you insight into where we're heading, and do a quick voiceover as I go through this. So the process looks a lot like it does today with Kobiton, in terms of, you know, the user executes a manual test using the browser interface that exists today in Kobiton. So that's where you see the user interface looks just like it does today. Launch an application, or launch a device, then choose an application to test. In this case, they're testing this application, and they're looking to, the tester is verifying that after tapping on the 10 times, that the next button is enabled, and then if they tap on the 11th time, that it shows red in the phone number. And they did that test, and they exit out, and they now can select all of the devices that they want to rerun that test against, and the market share that test that takes up. going really fast for some reason. I can speak faster. So then it'll show in real time those the tests that are being executed across those devices, and we have been getting 98% success in finding elements. So while straight out of the box, if you were to take a script, an Appium script that runs successfully on a Google Pixel 3, then it will have about a 40% chance of finding elements on other device types, other manufacturers. We have gotten that number through our statistical techniques and machine learning up to 98%, which we're really proud of. But you may say, well, all right, so that's 98%, but what about the 2% where it fails? How do you handle that? So we are, in addition to that, when we cannot find an element, we're providing you the ability to help the script out and find the element. So you can see right here, we've got a set of tests that are executing. The one at the bottom finished. That one in orange has had a failure, and you can see that these are, at that point, can click on the right-hand side there to remediate the issue, to fix the issue, and tell the script which element should be used to select in that step. The items in green are still progressing, and these devices, the test will execute as soon as the devices are ready they're available to be tested. Yeah, okay. So this shows the actual interface that will allow the user to see on the left-hand side, the original script that was run, and the green arrow shows the item that they're trying to select. On the right-hand side, you can see that the next wrap, so we're not able to find it, and they've changed the element name, a variety of changes to that element. The user can select that next and then submit, and that's all that needs to happen. That's it. Once you do that, we rerun the script, and it runs to completion. As you can see here, it's kicked off again, and it's in green, and it goes through and completes successfully. So that summarizes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Frank, just to give a little bit of clarity to the folks on the line, you basically at that point told that script that the next wrapping like that is okay. So it was built into the app that if the screen size is a certain width or under, go ahead and wrap that next to be vertical instead of horizontal. So when you clicked on that and you said submit, you basically said okay. And now if that happens on any other devices from here forward, that you will no longer get that sort of false positive or that false error.
It won't break again.
Correct.
There are a variety, in addition to remediation around this, which is the blocker, the user will also have the ability to identify and cite specific user interface rendering issues that are acceptable, so that from that point forward, the application, Kobiton, is smart enough to identify when there is a difference, if the difference is acceptable or not. Our goal here is to work in parallel with the tester to make their job easier. So that's a summary of what we've got going on from now to the end of the year, and look forward to you to working with you on it.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Yeah, I mean, from a sales perspective, so the folks in the crowd, I mean, when I talk to the vast majority of our customers or prospects, I mean, this is something that comes up on almost every single conversation. I talked to someone this morning that their biggest challenge was actually finding people that have the automation skill set already. And a lot of that is, how Frank highlighted on his first chart is, mobile just hasn't been around for an extremely long amount of time. I mean, testing of mobile has been 5-7 years maybe or something like that. So there's just not a ton of people out there with that skill set. I mean, obviously there's 90% of the people have a skill set of Selenium, and then all of a sudden Appium has 10%. So we're trying to help, bridge that gap as well. I mean, some folks don't have the skill set and they would like something like this. Other ones can't find people with the skill sets. So we feel like this is going to be able to really help out a lot of the market. Any questions, you guys, please submit. I think Drew is giving me a nod that there are some questions on the line, so I'll let him kind of kick things off. And then if anybody else has any other ones, please submit. We got a little bit extra time and we're happy to answer.
Awesome. Looks like quite a few great questions here. We'll start with the one that most recently came in and work our way backwards. So any plans to expand automation language support of JavaScript?
So the automation language support of JavaScript, right now we support Appium for automation. That Appium can be written in a variety of languages, including Ruby, C#, Java, JavaScript. With our booster, the first language we will be implementing is Java, because it is over 50% of the Appium users currently use Java, but we will be evaluating expanding that beyond Java.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Clay, this one looks like it may be geared towards you, but Frank, feel free to jump in here. What types of testing organizations have you seen get the most value from Kobiton?
It's a hard question to answer. It's really across the board. I mean, we work with folks in retail and healthcare and financial services and organizations that are purely building applications as well. So that's part of the we talked about the 3 different deployments of Kobiton as it is today. That's part of the benefit of that is if you're someone who mobile is not key to your business, you can come in and use something like the public cloud to test when needed. If you are someone who needs to run nightly regression and daily smoke tests and you're constantly updating your apps, then we have other offerings that can allow that as well. So if you're sort of immature in mobile or it's not just a super key to your business, we have something that can work for you. If mobile is 100% of your business and the lifeblood of keeping the lights on, there's areas we can help there as well. So I gave you a non-answer.
Hopefully that was enough for someone out there. Frank, this is likely going to go to you. What are the best test cases for record and playback functionality?
I suggest to start, focus on what would be considered the smoke test type tests, where you have a pretty clear flow. It's you're not hitting the edge cases yet, but then as you expand, I think you start to head into some of the more complex testing. One of the really cool things about what we're doing is we'll have all of the history of the application, so we'll know when there are anomalies in performance. If there was a change that was made to your application that if you were just a human looking at it and testing, we'll be able to you wouldn't be able to identify it just by looking at it with your eyes, with the naked eye, or you may miss it. And we'll be able to find those issues and raise them to you so you can make decisions on what to do.
Great. Either of you can answer this one. What type of device coverage do you typically see most teams aiming for when it comes to true market representation?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to our typical enterprise customer, they usually go either one of 2 paths. If they have a list of what their typical customer looks like, those are the devices that they'll go after. If not, we can actually provide some data of just like what the market share looks like for various regions and countries and things of that nature. But what we find that most people do is they will take probably the top 15 to 20 devices or something like that, and that is where they will do 80 or 90% of their testing, like Frank was talking about. That's where they'll do their smoke test or their sanity test, and that's what they'll run their nightly regression test or whatever on. That is what makes up 80% of their business or whatever it may be. some subset like that, and that's where they focus most of their testing on. And then they leverage our public cloud to replicate any bugs or any issues or anything of that nature. Or if there's a big release, they'll go out and hit that cloud for larger coverage. But most people, they can look at 20 or 30 devices and cover 80% of their users, and that's how they normally break it down.
Great. And then what are some typical integrations you see teams using with Kobiton?
I'll let Frank talk this a little bit too, but I mean, the most common we see, and I think most of the folks on the line, if you're doing automation, Jenkins seems to be, the most popular, and then Jira kind of on the back end for bugs and issues and things like that. And we have integrations with both. We also have a GitHub repo out there. So I think it's just github.com/Kobiton, or if you just Google it, you can find it. And we have integrations with things like Jenkins and TeamCity and CircleCI and Bamboo, and then examples for like React Native apps and pushing apps from things like Hockey App and things of that nature. But that's sort of the most common, though. I feel like on a weekly basis, someone tells me some tool they're using that I've never heard of before, but the way that we're built, that's not an issue. Whether you're using something like TestRail or whatever it may be, that's something we can do pretty easily. And Frank, if you've heard different from discovery calls and things like that, feel free to chime in.
Nope, you covered it all, Clay.
Awesome. Frank, this one looks like it might be geared towards you. How would the record and playback functionality impact our CI/CD pipelines?
If you have an existing CI/CD pipeline, that means you have some level of automation in place. When you have that automation in place, you can use Kobiton's record and playback, not for the record and playback piece, but for the assertion. So being able to enhance your assertion capability in your existing Appium scripts. That would mean that if performance got slow on one transaction, you would be notified that happened, and then you can go into Kobiton's interface, and it would allow you to determine if it is a true issue that you want to raise with your dev team. Additionally, if you want to record new capabilities purely within Kobiton, you will be able to initiate those recorded scripts through an API that would be exposed for your CI/CD pipeline.
Awesome, great. Clay, you'll likely want to take this one. Which competitors is Kobiton most frequently compared to, and how is Kobiton different?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say who we're most frequently compared to, but when we're talking to a company who we sort of come up in competition with a lot, or companies are also evaluating, it's normally three different companies. So we hear a lot about Sauce Labs and Browser Stack and Perfecto. When it comes to those guys, we really differentiate ourselves in three different ways, and it's really three sort of cores to how we do business. It's less feature to feature. When I talk to people, I'm not like, oh, well, we have this and they have that. We're just gonna nickel and dime the entire time and not gonna go anywhere. It's really three core ways that we differentiate ourselves. One is performance. So as you guys saw in the demo, we strive to have real quality performance and as much like a real device in hand as possible. So we're often going to differentiate ourselves there. The other is going to be the flexibility of our platform, and really that flexibility comes in a few manners. One's the flexibility of deployment. So public devices, private devices, local devices, you can connect them all. You can run both automation and manual testing on our platform, either one or both. And then something we didn't touch on, but Kobiton also doesn't have any limitation on number of users or concurrency or an additional cost. So when you look at our platform in the simplest way and the most flexible way is you either purchase minutes or you connect your own devices or use our private devices, and then sort of don't have to worry about the rest, whether it's automated, whether it's manual, whether it's one user, whether it's 100 users, just doesn't matter. And then lastly, it's going to be affordability. So a lot of times we're going to be much more affordable than those other solutions as well. Sometimes if you're looking at everybody's websites, you got to kind of dive into it a little bit. But when you start looking at running several concurrent users, several concurrent sessions, both manual testing and automated testing, we are often much more affordable than the competition. So those three things: performance, flexibility, and affordability are really where we differentiate ourselves.
Awesome, which is a great segue into the last question here. Clay, again, how does Kobiton pricing work?
So like you just mentioned, so it's really those three different levels of deployment. So with the public cloud devices, it's all based on a per minutes usage. So you decide how many minutes you may leverage on the public cloud in a month or a year. And that's how that would be dictated. When it comes to private and local devices, it would be a flat monthly or annual cost for those devices. Those devices then have unlimited minutes. The pricing on those fluctuates a little bit depending on whether you're going to connect your own, whether we are going to host them for you privately. If we're hosting them privately, are you providing the devices? Are we procuring them for you? Do they have things like cell coverage or not? So there's a little bit of fluctuation there, but it's really flat cost for local or private devices with unlimited minutes, and then a minutes usage type deal with the public devices.
Awesome. Well, that appears to be all the questions we have. I just want to say thank you again to Clay and Frank, both of you, for participating in this webinar and giving us such insightful information about the Kobiton platform. And lastly, thank you to the audience for showing up today. We look forward to engaging you on the next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one.